So, okay, I'm here to introduce my friend Matt Sweetwood. Matt. So exactly 1 year ago tonight, I was standing in the lobby with my also good friend Lionel Leventhal, and up walks this guy. He introduced me to him, and his name is Matt Sweetwood. And we strike up a conversation, and within about 40 seconds of beginning the conversation, he pulls out this picture of himself in like full Blue Man Group body paint, and I said to myself, like, I can get along with this guy, and we did. And amazingly, he now holds the record for going from complete stranger to gala honoree, the fastest turnaround we've ever had. So Matt and I got along really well, and I noticed a number of things about him. A, that make him a great man in general, and B, make him a great person for us to honor. There's 4 of them, and this is them. Number 1, Matt Sweetwood is a very deep and thoughtful person. Among other topics we've discussed over the year is mathematics, which he is. He's a math guy. Math geniuses, the aging process and the importance of exercise, dating, God, the purpose of creation, free will, dating, and a lot more. Number 2, he's a strong and principled person. Matt is a man of conviction who stands up for what he believes in and will leave little ambiguity as to where he stands on an issue. If you know him, he tells it like it is. He's a big supporter of Israel as well. He sits on the several nonprofit boards, and he is a big advocate for single fathers and for other people in trying familial circumstances. Number 3, Matt is a doer. So like it says in those Perky Avos books that you guys are going to pick up afterwards, it says that you should be like the patriarch Abraham, who promises little but does a lot. And I really think that Matt embodies this. This is a man who does everything for everybody all the time. For instance, we did not have any machazorim. We didn't have any prayer books for our high holiday services. I put on Facebook, we have these things, we get 200 of them in Philadelphia. We need to get up here pronto. I put something on Facebook. Of course, Matt responds. He gets the guy in Philly to schlep all the machazorim, put him in a car, load him up. Actually, the guy's here tonight. His name's Ed. Thank you very much, Ed DeVere. Saving the high holidays for us, but that's the kind of guy Matt is. He just gets stuff done. And finally, and this is really, I think, the thing that people like about him most, is he's having a great time and making the whole thing look really easy. Despite his very real challenges that you're going to hear about in just a couple of minutes, he has a warm, fun-loving, and upbeat disposition that is automatically inspiring to those around him. And for those reasons and more, it's my pleasure to present him with the Jewish Continuity Award. Thank you, Matt Sweetwood.
Thank you, Rabbi. Let's see if I'm on. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Welcome, everybody. I don't know if you can see me well enough. It's kind of dark out there, but I'm going to walk down here so I can move around a little bit. Thank you, Rabbi Jacobs. I appreciate that introduction. Let me begin by first congratulating the other honorees tonight. I'm going to kind of slide around here so I can see the slide. Now that you guys can see me, by the way, they had put this contraption on my head, but they told me that my hair was going to cover it. Let me congratulate the other honorees tonight, Henry Siegel and the rest of the Aish Executive Learning Community. A round of applause for them. Well done. I'd also like to thank Rabbi Jacobs, Rabbi Schiff, and the Aish Executive Board for bestowing this honor onto me. It's a great honor. I humbly accept the Jewish Continuity Award. I have to tell you that when Rabbi Jacobs, he gave sort of, I got it quickly, I was an honoree. We were actually in a bar. Am I allowed to say that? Right? We were sitting in a bar and he said, well, you're going to be an honoree. And of course, I was surprised. I laughed out about it. And then the next day, I had to send him an email to make sure I was not a little confused about what had happened the night before. And I'm going to tell you a personal story tonight, which is really, really difficult. I speak a lot in public and so on, but telling personal stories is always a little bit more difficult. And you're going to see where I came from and how I ended up here was really, it's quite remarkable, I think, in many ways. So everything is for the best, and you're going to see some Aish wisdom as we go through here tonight. It's sort of incorporated in. All the Almighty does is for your benefit. When you know that in your heart, you will not be broken or become sad regardless of how the Almighty sets up your life. You will accept whatever happens with love. My version of that is that the plan that you have in life is not exactly the plan that God is going to carry out for you. I'm sure we've all had that experience. My life plan changed dramatically in 1996 when my wife, the mother of my 5 children, left us for good in a display of erratic, ugly, abusive, and finally diagnosed personality disorder behavior. It's a hard thing to say in front of a lot of people. But I was now a single dad of 5 kids, ages 18 months through 8 years old. I would definitely call that not part of the flight plan that I had. The Jewish approach to suffering is that everything happens for the good. But we are finite and cannot see the whole picture. We trust God and say, I haven't yet figured out why, but God knows this is for the best. I'm sure everybody in here has experienced a time in their life when they thought it was more than they can handle, when things were going really, really bad. And then you overcome that, and as a result of overcoming that, you grow. And that's really, I think, typifies my life. Now, the place where my wife left really is in the middle of my story. So let me take you back a little bit, and I'll quickly take you through how I got to that point. My relatives, my ancestry is basically Eastern European, like a lot of people in here, Poland, Austria, Russia. In fact, I took that 23andme.com genetic test, and it says I'm 97.3% Ashkenazi Jew. Anybody here do that? Right? Interesting, right? You think it's true? Anyway, here's a picture of my mom and dad. They're the 2 on the right. That is Bernard Ziesholz and Harriet Cohen. That's their parents in the middle. And that's his brother on the right. My parents grew up in the Brooklyn ethnic neighborhoods of the 20s and 30s. Their first language was actually Yiddish. I remember my mom telling me that's what she learned as a little girl, had an accent until she eventually gave it up. But most of all, they were of the generation that fiercely wanted to be American. They just wanted to assimilate as Americans and be like Americans. My mom, not wanting to have the uber-Jewish name Harriet Ziesholz, actually had the name changed to the literal translation of Zies and Holtz, and that's how you get Sweetwood. And yes, I do get asked frequently, is Sweetwood a Jewish name? And there you go, it is. Right, I get that. Actually, I got friended on Facebook by some Sweetwoods out in the Midwest. It was very scary. Very scary. There were hoods and crosses and all sorts of things like that. I didn't accept the friend request. My parents moved to New Jersey. They opened a photographic supply store, a camera store, a Hoboken Camera. They put me and my brother in the New Jersey school systems. I was one of the few kids in the Jersey school system at that time that called himself Jewish, though we had very little connection with the Jewish community, so I really was very confused about my identity. I knew we were Jewish, but I didn't really know what that meant. When I grew up, my parents were very distrusting of Jewish religious organizations, so learned no Hebrew. I sort of had no connection to that. They spoke Yiddish as a language so that we would not understand, me and my brother. They didn't teach it to us. When I look back, I've forgiven my parents for everything, but that I'm still struggling with a little bit. So I never learned Hebrew, never had a bar mitzvah. Actually, the first time I set foot in a temple was when I was 18 years old, and that was for my niece's bar mitzvah. I didn't even understand what was going on. I met my wife, the mother of children, which actually you can see sitting at this table right here, when I went to graduate school at the University of Pennsylvania. Any Penn people in here? You were around with no Penn? We were studying mathematics together. And as you can see, us mathematicians really know how to party. That's my thesis advisor there playing the accordion, a multi-talented individual. And that is me as Santa. Really enjoying the American lifestyle. That is a picture of my wife and I's first holiday party. My wife was also Jewish. She grew up in the Jersey suburbs. She had a very similar upbringing as I did, and that's a picture of my daughter Michelle, our first child. When she left us, I'll remind you that I had 5 children, 18 months through 8 years old. When that marriage started to go badly, sort of a set of circumstances started to take place in my life, and I look back on it as a transformative period. I had made a friend with an Israeli man, actually, through business. He had just come out of the Israeli army. He was here with his wife new to this country, and I did some things for him that were really nice and helpful for his wife. I helped him get settled. He eventually came and worked for me and so on. And so when it came time for me to find help for my children, because I needed help in the house, he knew somebody that could get me a reliable nanny. And you'll see as the story goes that that's not the first time that a good deed that I've done has actually come back to me in a very special way. Very soon, I had 2 Israeli women living in my house, and not in Rotem. I'm embarrassing my kids right here, sitting here, little pictures of them. So Hebrew was then spoken in the house regularly. One of the funny things is that we ended up eating at Burger King a lot. And to this day, I'm not really understanding the fascination of these 2 women with Burger King, but boy, they made me go a lot. One of the first serious discussions we had was what a mezuzah was, because I had no idea. But I will tell you that after I put them on the doors of that house, I've never lived in a house without a mezuzah on the door. Well, my first wife had a little bit of a shopping problem. And there was quite a bit of excess clothing and toys and other items in the house, and so the nannies and I had to get to work and do something with that. And we ended up donating a lot of it to charities, some of the larger charities in the area. But Anad had a relative who was living in Brooklyn, a young couple, and they were a very young couple, and they had young children. I remember when they came over, of course I agreed to donate the stuff directly to them. I remember when they came over, they actually looked too young to have children. That was my remark at the time. It was very soon after I made that donation, I had a knock at my door. And that was Mendel Solomon. He came to my door, opened the door, I was a little surprised to see him, and he said he wanted to thank me for the donation. His brother was a rabbi at that young couple's shul, and he wanted to come thank me in person. He also let me know that there was a Chabad shul. He was a Chabad rabbi himself, and there was a Chabad shul right around the corner. And he invited me to Shabbat service. I thanked him, of course, and of course I didn't go, because I had never been to the service before. One funny thing I'll tell you about that story is I remember when he came to the door, he had his little daughter with him. She was a little girl, I would say she was 3 or 4 years old. And she was a little scared by my sight, which happens frequently. And he actually pointed to the mezuzah on the door and he said, "Don't be scared, they're friends." What I did do was put all of my children in Hebrew school. Even though I didn't go to temple, I put them in Hebrew school. So now I'm going to really embarrass my children. So that's actually a picture from our Hebrew school. The young lady on the left there in the white is my munchkin Sarah right here. And the tall one on the right, you must have been like supervising that class or something. That's my daughter Rebecca, who by the way just graduated from George Washington University, magna cum laude. She speaks Mandarin and we need to get her a job. So any takers out there will help her out. Of course, after going to Hebrew school, you end up, and remember I got 5 kids, so everything's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We end up with bar and bar mitzvahs. My daughter Michelle. My daughter Rebecca. My daughter Sarah. You see, I really liked the microphone back then. My son Ben. And Zach. And you know, I'm going to tell you something funny about Zach, wait before I say, is I looked for pictures of him doing, like, and all I could find were party pictures. So that's 5 kids, 5 bar mitzvahs. Bar mitzvahs. A just person may fall 7 times and rise. I should have known better from the last time, one says. Some lessons are not learned so easily, even from experience. We may understand something with our intellect, yet it may not have filtered down into our hearts. Today I shall try to make faith in myself, even when I make the same mistake over and over again. Well, soon after I met my second wife, or as I like to put it, first wife part 2. Oh yeah. I married the same woman, or essentially the same kind of woman again. Needless to say, it ended up with a very similar kind of ending. One of the good things that my second wife brought to me was she was, and I'll sort of get on Modi's thing there, she was a Sephardic Jew, and she was more religious-minded than my first wife. And one of the things that she wanted to do was walk to shul on the high holidays. And while we lived in the suburbs, we didn't really live close enough to any shul to walk with. When she had asked that, of course, I remembered the conversation I had with Mendel Solomon. And we made friends with him again, and we ended up becoming members of that Chabad shul. When that marriage, we're going to quickly go through this. When that marriage really started to go badly, actually this was one of the most painful times in my life. It was a situation where my second wife had her mother and brother living in the house with us, and they were doing very, very bad things to us, to the kids. They were hurting the kids. And I was very upset with myself for allowing this to happen again. Really, it was a very difficult circumstance. I was angry. So I took the kids and we went on a vacation to Miami. I think there's some stereotyping there or something, but whatever. I took them on a vacation to Miami. I figured it would be good to get away. I thought it would be a chance for me to get my head straight, to actually try to understand, why I had done this, and I relaxed myself, come back with a plan. Instead, when I was on the beach, I started to get mad. Really, really mad. I was mad at myself. I look back, I was really angry at myself. But I was really angry at the people that I had allowed to live in my house, that I had done so much for, and I allowed them to hurt my children. So I was an angry man heading back to New Jersey. On the way back to New Jersey, a set of fateful circumstances started to happen. We got to the airport. I had kids with me, so of course we were late. Right? Late is for losers, right? That's my saying. But we were late, and so we were going to miss our flight. And you have 4 kids with you. You don't want to miss the flight. So I got this great idea that I would upgrade my ticket to first class. Because if I get a first class ticket, you can get your whole party by the line. Paid the $100, totally worth it. And of course, we made the flight. In fact, I knew my decision was a really good one. Because when I got on the plane, sitting in my first class seat, was this lovely lady. Well, not this one, but one that looked like that. So I was like, yeah. I had done just the right thing. Good job, man. So I sat down in a seat next to her, and I got about 30 seconds there before her old friend walked on the plane. They hadn't seen each other in a really long time. So being the gentleman that I am, I of course surrendered my seat. I, surrendered is the right word. And I moved back 2 seats in first class and sat by myself. And I sat there for a while, and it looked like I was going to have 2 first-class seats to myself for the whole flight, so that wasn't such a bad consolation prize. Just before the plane door shut, a gentleman walked on the plane. And this gentleman, he's an observant man, his name is Jeffrey, and he's actually invited tonight. Jeffrey, you're right there. Say hi, Jeffrey. That's not him, though. That's not him up there. That's the real Jeffrey right there. And we sat down and we naturally became friends. We talked about our families, and I guess he sensed that I was pissed. Did I say that? So he guessed that I was upset, and he tried to give me advice. And then eventually he said, you're a thoughtful man. You seem so spiritual. I have some really good advice for you. What I recommend you do is go to a website called Aish.com. Sign up for the emails. They could give you something called the Daily Lift. And I think you're really, really going to enjoy those emails. It's okay. We exchanged numbers and something, right? It wasn't the date I had planned, but okay, we'll take it. We'll take it. And I went home that night. I remember I unpacked, and I went up and I signed up for the emails. And I then sat there, and I remember fuming that night. Because I was like, in a way, when you're mad, you're glad to be back in the house because now you're going to deal with that. And I had thought to myself that revenge was going to be sweet as honey. Because I'm a Jersey guy, and one of my sayings is, we pour concrete daily. Right? And I was going to seek revenge on the people that had hurt me and my children. So the very next day, turned on my phone, first ritual in the morning, and there, lo and behold, was my first email from Aish.com. Revenge. The Torah states explicitly, do not hate your brother in your heart, do not take revenge, and do not bear a grudge. Imagine being able to let those feelings melt away, forgive. Allow yourself to feel the relief and lightness of living in the present, totally free from those counterproductive thoughts and feelings. Well, I figured for sure Jeffrey had greatness. So I checked the header of the email, I took a look at a couple of things, and then I realized that it was real. And then after I realized that it was real, I realized that Rabbi Pushkin was right. Is that revenge was going to serve no purpose. Really, my duty was to my children and making sure that they were going to be taken care of, and hurting other people was not really going to solve that. And so I took that to heart, and that was really the first time in my life my eyes really opened as to the way that is. And I will tell you that I have been reading those emails religiously every day since that day. The joy of virtue is in its own reward. Even if a person would receive no other reward besides the joy and pleasure he has from performing a good deed, it would be sufficient. The greatest potential for pleasure is the pleasure we experience when performing a good deed. Well, one of the themes that you see in these emails all the time is the Jewish nature to charity, to give tzedakah. And I had not really done that in my life. And you just keep reading these emails over and over again, and it really talks about the mitzvah in doing that. And I always had made an excuse. I had kids to take care of, 5 kids to take care of. I had a complicated business, never had money, paying money to ex-wives, doing all this stuff. There's always an excuse not to do it. So I started to, in my mind, really, think about things and realize that there's no time like the present, and people with less than me are able to do it. Which is why when a young man walked in my store named Seth, and he proposed this project called the Artists for Israel Project, he actually needed some cameras and film for the project. They were going on a trip to Israel, and I donated the cameras and film. It was no big deal for him. In turn, and it actually worked out really well, because when he came back, we ended up running a fundraiser for them. And we got some of their graffiti artists to actually paint our camera store building. And we actually had the largest 3D graffiti mural in the country at one point, and you can imagine the kind of PR that we got for that. It was a really cool thing to have on the front of the camera store. And since I mentioned the camera store, now this is where the rabbis kind of like wince. I run a really, really cool camera store. We sell cameras, and I'll remind you that I have how many ex-wives? 2. How many kids? 5. 2 in college right now. My son Ben is at Columbia. And where's my other one? My little munchkin's at Pace, right? And this one graduated from GW, is still paying those bills. So any kind of purchase that you would feel necessary to make, it would be greatly appreciated. That's Unique Photo, uniquephoto.com. We're really cool. Okay, I couldn't resist. Okay, back to the Artists for Israel, back to my journey to Aish, as I like to say. So as a result of helping out this project, and it's a really worthwhile project, they do some pretty amazing things. One of the Seth had me meet with the executive director, Craig, and he said, I think it would be really beneficial if you met one of our board members. I'm like, sure, why not? And so they set up a meeting, and that board member, of course, is Lionel Leventhal. Lionel, you notice I've got Dr. Ruth in the program, right? So, okay, that was great. So Lionel and I became friends. We'd go out sometimes, party it up a little bit, right? Us wild guys. One time we were out having dinner, and I think we were discussing something personal. I don't remember what it was. Keep in mind, I had no idea his connection. And I don't remember whether it was an issue he had or I had, but I had recalled some Aish wisdom I had gotten that day. And I whipped out my smartphone, and I opened the email, and I read him something from Aish.com that I had gotten. And of course, he's smiling at me. And he opens his business card, and he shows me a business card that says Aish Center New York Board of Directors. And that is how I got connected with the Early Learning Program, because Lionel came to me and said, if you really, really like Aish wisdom, you're going to really enjoy the Executive Learning Program here. And that's how I became connected with Rabbi Jacobs. Let me end on a really, really happy story. That's all of them here, actually, from about a year ago. I'm actually going to make my first trip to Israel in this December. It's for my oldest. And we're going to take all of them with me. And this is for my daughter, my oldest daughter, Michelle's wedding. I've never been to Israel, so obviously I'm really looking forward to it. A couple of my kids have gone on birthright before. And so now I'm really wondering maybe at some point I should have learned Hebrew along the way. Let me just speak a little bit in conclusion about what Aish has meant to me. So I'm a person that's been a little bit disconnected from the Jewish community because of my upbringing and where I've been. And I've had to raise these children on my own. And Aish has really connected me with Judaism in a way that would probably not have been possible. I probably would not have accepted it. And I can't really say more eloquently than the words that really Henry put up there about how it made him a better person. It made him more understanding. It made him more compassionate. It really enlightened him into what's really, really important in life. And the one thing that I have learned is that I need to learn a lot more, and I certainly plan on doing that here at the Aish Center. I thank you for listening to my story. I hope it was meaningful for you, and everybody have a